In this video, we are going to be making a donut, and we're going to be adding frosting to it. Now, there's two different ways we're going to be adding the frosting. There's going to be the very simple way, which is very low poly, and then a little bit more complicated way using fluid emitters. Additionally, after we do the frosting on the donut, we'll play around with the fluid emitters a little bit more and create a pouring out effect of one of the cups that we have on the screen. All right. So to begin, we're going to click on torus. Now, if you're not aware, modeling a donut is a very, very difficult task. So with torus selected, we're going to click right here. I'm going to drag out just a bit. Release the mouse. Set my second radius by moving the mouse again and then clicking. And the difficult task of modeling a donut is done. I know that was a lame joke, but still had to say it. All right, so after we got the torus done, I'm just going to raise it up just a little bit so it's on the same axis as everything else as far as where the floor is going to be. If my move tool will let me. There we go. Now I'm going to add a couple of other objects on here. The first one will be a cylinder. So I'm just going to click right in the middle of the torus, drag it out to about the edge, and give it just a little bit of height. Now, however thick this cylinder is going to represent how much fluid we use to create our frosting effect. Which I know saying fluid to create frosting is a little weird, but it works in the end. I'm just going to drag this above the torus. You see it's lined up there, and lined up here. After that, still standard primitives. I'm going to select plane. I'm going to just draw a plane underneath the donut. And I do want to move it up just a tiny bit. It's not necessary, but I've had better luck with the plane just about midway up this first row of polygons here. So now that the plane's there, the torus is here, and the cylinder's here, we're going to add one more object to the scene. And if we click on the standard primitives, pull down right here, then we click on fluids, we're going to add a fluid loader. And where you put the fluid loader doesn't matter. It's not going to be rendered on the screen. It's just a container to hold all the scripts that are going to be running our fluids. All right, so that thing is added. So explaining what I've added here. Fluid loader is going to control our liquids. This cylinder here, again, is going to act as a container to hold our initial liquid volume. And our liquid is going to be dropped straight down onto the torus. Now the torus here, of course, is our donut, and this plane right here is going to be what's known as a kill plane. A kill plane is just a point in where the fluids hit it and cease to exist. This will prevent us from having fluids way off into the distance that, just fall through everything else. All right, so at this point, I need to click on my simulation view. We get this window right here. Our fluid loader right there. We're going to click create and then liquid object. And we get this menu here. So this first tab here, the liquid attributes, is where we're going to define what our emitters are, what the liquid's going to collide with. Kill planes. Apparently already had a liquid in the cache. Let me clear that out real quick. So what I did was I just expanded out the liquid and selected the solver. Now I'm clearing the cache and clearing the mesh cache, hitting OK. It's gone now. Surprised that was even there. Sorry about that. Anyways, we'll declare what emitters we're using right here. The items that our liquid will be able to collide with here, and then items that will kill our particles right here. For the record, it says add kill planes. To my knowledge, this only works with planes. So try not to use something else. Let's see, foam masks here is a little bit more advanced. That's going to be the bubbling effect that happens whenever liquid hits something. Not going to deal with that in this video, nor guides, channels, nor motions. All right. So up here in the emitter, we have icon type sphere. Now, when I created the liquid solver, it added another object to the scene. And that's a liquid object right there. So let me just go ahead and bring this to where it's a little bit easier to see. You can see right there, there's a sphere, as well as the icon showing that this is a liquid. If I change it from sphere to box, it changes the sphere to the box, plain, and custom. Custom is what we want. When we select custom, the icon that was here disappears, right? That's because it added another section right here, which allows us to select an object in our scene to represent our custom emitter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click pick, and then I'm going to select on my cylinder here, and then deselect pick. So what that's going to do is whenever our emitter is turned on, it's going to create fluid within the volume of this cylinder. Up next, colliders and kill planes. Because this particular liquid is only going to be used for frosting on the donut, all I'm going to do is just add my torus right here. So if I click on that, deselect. So there's our collider and our kill plane. I'm going to click pick and then click on that. Now again, if I move over any other object in the scene, you see it's not giving me that plus that shows that I can select it. And if I click anywhere else, it's not letting me add it to the kill plane. So, all right. So I'm going to deselect pick there. And then I'm going to move over to solver parameters. Again, real quick. Emitter, this is our volume of our emitter, the thing that's going to be creating the fluid. This is colliders are everything that our fluid is going to be able to hit. And kill planes are going to be the planes that make the fluid cease to exist once it touches it. And I should take the moment to point out, this says show voxel grid right there. For those of you not familiar with a voxel, two word parts here, volumetric and pixel. So pixel, again, is just going to be a singular dot on a raster image. So, if you get your face really, really close to the screen, you should be able to see the various dots that make up your screen. And that's an example of a pixel. Volumetric is pertaining to volume. Add those two words together and you have a pixel that has volume. Typical pixels are 2D. A voxel is effectively a 3D pixel. Most of the time, we're only going to use these in fluid calculations and particle effects as far as entertainment goes. However, in the medical field, MRIs, which are used for scanning the brain and getting a basic idea of the structure of the internals of the body, they use voxels in order to create the model sets that are used they use to view the structure of the body layer by layer. We're not going to get too deep into what shapes voxels have besides typically a box. There are, I think, 12 different voxel shapes that are used by the MRIs. Again, we're not going to go deep into that. Anyways, moving forward, I'm going to click on solver parameters here. And simulation parameters right here. This will allow us to set where in the timeline, which is this bar right here, our fluids will be active from. Scale, this will allow us to change the scale that's used by 3ds Max. By default, 1 unit is 1 inch. So if you are running a simulation of any kind and you notice that your simulation feels like it's kind of moving slowly, take a look to see how big the items are. For instance, this donut here, this donut is almost 7 inches wide. Well, it's not too bad for a donut. The cup, on the other hand, let's go down to the, oh, right, I used It's a Boolean object for that one. Fun. Well, anyways, if the donut's 7 inches wide, and we can see that the cup is wider than the donut by, let's see here. I would say probably about 20% bigger. This is really a huge cup. We'll rescale this stuff later, but for now we're going to leave it as is. Anyways, back on task. So our scale's right there, solver parameters. Base voxel size is 0.5, so that's half an inch. Gravity magnitude, 9.8. If for some reason you want to do fluid simulations on a different planet, you can change the gravity magnitude there. Or if you want to, make rain fall backwards, just put a minus right there, and now all the fluids fall up. I don't want it to fall backwards. All right, the rest of this, I'm just going to leave all these alone for now. Most of the times the default settings will be fine. I'm going to click on liquid parameters here. Default settings for our liquid, I believe, is water. Not 100% certain, but anyways, like with the materials, 3ds Max has a bunch of presets for us. So if we look down through here, we can find various liquids that are similar to what we're wanting to create, right? Now, I've been using chocolate on this. I'm going to use chocolate again. However, we have other liquids here that you can use and you can play around with just to see which one gets a frosting effect that you're the happiest with. Whoops. Once you select your preset, you'll need to click this load button right here. If you don't click the load button, it doesn't change anything. Now, most of the chocolate presets happen a little bit lower here. So if I click the load button now, you'll see surface tension change. It became enabled. Viscosity went up to 11. And I'm not sure what else changed, but those are the ones that I happened to catch when I clicked the button. If you want to change it to any type of other liquid, mercury's on here. That's always fun to play around with. Click on that. Surface tension goes up. Viscosity goes way low. Now let's go back to chocolate. Anyways, after that, I'm going to click on emitter objects. And this is where we define how our emitter acts. On emitter type, there's two different settings. There's emitter and container. If it's on emitter, this is going to work like a faucet. So every single frame is going to be creating more fluid for the simulation. If I change it to container, then only on the first frame of the simulation is it going to create the voxels that represent the fluid. After that, it doesn't create any more fluid. Enable liquid emission right here. You can use this to toggle it on and off. And if you'll notice when I hover over top of it, it tells you what it does, and then it says animatable underneath it. This means that if we turn on our auto key and then we toggle that on and off, it'll create keyframes toggling the emitter on and off for us. So we can have emitters that, will emit liquid, stop, emit liquid, and stop without having to restart the simulation each time. The rest of this, you can play around with these if you want, but again, most of these settings are just fine just to leave them alone. Again, we want the emit type to be set to container. And then our collision objects, we're going to leave that alone. Kill plane objects, there's nothing really to change there. And again, we're not using guides or foams or anything else for this. All right. So from there, I'm going to check this box right here, generate mesh component. That's going to be important for us in a few moments. The reason why is because liquid is a little difficult to work with if you need to make any changes to position, and I'll show you that after I click the play button right here. What the play button is going to do is it's going to take a look at my timeline, and frame by frame, it's going to calculate where the liquid should be. So I'm going to hit play now. And you'll see my simulation is going up a few percent. Our voxels have loaded in and our fluid is falling. It's collided with the donut. It's kind of seeping down and around. And it's just going to keep going all the way up until this reaches the end of my timeline. As it progresses, you'll notice it does kind of slow down a little bit. More voxels will slow it down. More collisions will slow it down. It's just a matter of processing power and what's going on. I'm just going to let this play out till the end. I'm going to point out right now, you see how the voxels are colliding with my plane right here? No more voxels existing underneath it. It's just the ones that are hitting the plane are existing for a brief moment and then ceasing to exist. I can tell you already, I've already seen the point that I want on this, but again, I'm just going to let this finish rendering out because it's going pretty quickly now. All right. So simulation has finished calculating where the fluid where the fluid particles would land. You see little check marks next to both of these. Again, this is our foam solver. If I had checked that, it would have tried to create a foam cache. I'm not going to worry about that. If for any reason you need to restart the simulation because you realize you messed up, you're going to right click here, you'll click clear cache, and then check the box to each component that you want to clear out. I don't want to clear anything out, so I'm going to hit cancel. Now, the fluid can be a little bit difficult to see what's going on. I'm just going to drag the timeline here. You can watch the voxels and get a general idea of what shape the fluid's going to take on, but there's a better way to see what it's going to look like. I'm going to click on Display Settings now, and where it says Display Type, Point, that's showing our voxels. I'm going to change it to Bifrost Cache Mesh. There we go. So now it's showing an actual mesh showing what our fluid will look like in the video. If I can drag it around here, you can get a generally decent idea of what it looks like. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and close this out right here. I'm going to click the eyeball next to the plane and click the eyeball on the cylinder. So it's no longer there. I'm just going to rotate around here. So we got our donut. Got a little bit of a rough edge down here, which is kind of preferred. I mean, this is a frosted donut. And towards the end of the simulation, you can see where the fluid started thinning out in some places, a little bit quicker than other places, creating a little bit of a rough effect going on there. So this would be kind of like those little miniature donuts that you'll see sometimes in schools. All right. So at this point, I'm going to click on the liquid, right? So I've got the liquid selected. And if I grab the y-axis, you'll notice it's not moving, right? Now, if I wanted to move the donut, that's going to be a big problem because if I click on the torus, I mean, obviously I can move the torus still. We want the frosting to go with it. So there is a solution here. I'm going to click on the pull-down menu and I'm going to add an edit poly to it. Then I'm going to select on polygon selection. Polygon selection will let me grab any one of this horde of polygons that we see right here. If I hit Control A, it'll select all of the polygons at once. It's kind of like doing a box selection over the whole thing, just, keyboard shortcut. From there, I'm going to scroll down. I don't want to make any changes at the moment because I know my computer is not powerful enough to individually manipulate this mesh and not crash. So down here where it says detach, I'm going to check this box, click this box right here. And I'm going to click detach as clone. And for the name, I'm just going to call it frosting. Now you may not have to do detach as clone, but I didn't check that box on a previous attempt and it kind of crashed 3ds Max for me. May have just been my computer, but I'm not going to tempt fate. Once I click OK, you'll see it asks to add a defrosting object right here. And at this point, I can click the eyeball next to the liquid, select the frosting, whoops, and now I can move the frosting as well. So if I want to have the frosting selected, then grab the torus, I can come up here to group, click group right there, call that group donut with frosting, and now anytime I click on one, it adds the other to my selection group. And I can move them both together. All right. I am going to ungroup that real quick though, because something I did not do was add any type of materials to my donut or my icing. So I'm going to open up my material editor, find a nice empty spot, which I could pick that one, but I'm going to go right here simply because I want my donut and my frosting next to each other. On finishes, we have hot dog bun right here. Hot dog bun is a type of bread. Donut means type of bread. So we're going to click on that. And it's taking its time. So now with the donut selected, I'm going to do material, assign to selection. And it's kind of pale for a donut. For this particular material, if I click right here on the M and find my minimum right here, I can pick a darker color and it's going to make the donut less pale. You can pay attention to what the material is looking like right here to have an idea of what color the donut's going to be. So click OK. Maximum. Again, I'm not fine with that color right there, so let's find a nice darker color here. Hit OK. Input. Let's just darken that up as well. Not sure I actually needed to darken the input there. Anyways, once it's assigned to selection, you see we have a darker donut there. And it's got the little imperfections that the hot dog bun material brings with it. Up next is our frosting. So I'm going to select this material right here. Finishes. Matte paint should work nicely. So material assigned to selection. And I mean, all at the moment, all it's done is just change it to that color right there. If I click on this, I can change it to any color I want. Let's go with, you know what? I actually kind of like the pinker color. That's close enough to pink. Maybe. There we go. So there's our donut material, our frosting material. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so for this, I want to go ahead and add a fluid to this cup right here. Um, First off, I am going to create a cylinder object. And I'm just going to put it right here inside of the cup. Now you'll notice that the cylinder is going down below the base here. That is a very bad thing. So let's go ahead and drag that up a bit. And one of the things we want to double check is that at no point is the cylinder clipping through the walls. A little difficult to tell, but if I zoom in right here, um, looks like we may be clipping just a little bit right there. So I'm just going to drag a little bit this way and we should be good. The reason why we don't want this clipping through the walls is simply because when it generates the voxels, if it is clipping through the wall, we may end up with some voxels just kind of falling out of the cup. Now we have the straw right there, the cup, and our cylinder that's going to represent our fluid emitter. All right. So unlike with the donut, I'm going to try to be a little bit more organized and call this Rootbeer. All right. Up next, when I start pouring the cup out, physics says the straw should fall out, right? But since we're only doing a staged render on this one, I'm just going to grab this straw and drag it out of the cup for now, just simply because there's no point in having it there. And also, because this is going to end up being a staged render, I need to start thinking about the placement of my objects. And now that I think a little bit more on it before we even start placing our objects, what about that table I made in the other video? Let's import that into this scene. So I'm going to click on File, and then I'm going to click on Import and then Merge. Merge will let me combine objects from multiple 3ds Max files. However, if the file is not a 3ds Max format, we can click on Import and it'll let us import some other file format into the current scene. So I'm going to click on Merge and have a panic attack when it doesn't load quick enough. There's my table right there. I'm going to select on that and click Open. And I'm just going to click right here, hold down Shift, and click right there, and that will select everything between the first selection and the last one. If you want to select a whole bunch of stuff like that, it's really easy to do that. However, if you do that and there's some object you don't actually want in it, say the ring cutout here, I don't need the cutout. If I hold down Control and then click on that, it'll deselect that one item. Whatever you have selected here is what will be imported into the scene. So be very careful about that. I'm going to click OK, and it's telling me we've got a lot of materials with the same name. I can just click Auto Rename right here, and it'll rename it for me. And then it just says, hey, look, we got another material with the same name. It's going to keep happening. So I'm going to click Apply to All Duplicates and click Auto Rename. And then once I've done that, all the objects I had selected, as you can see here, are imported into the scene. So, yay. All right, so with that in, I'm now going to do a box selection of everything down here. Make sure to deselect the legs. And I'm going to drag these up onto the table. As a general rule, anytime you are working with physics, this zero plane right here, I want to say that's 0 on the z-axis, but I'm not 100% certain at the moment. Let's take a look. Yeah, z up and down. So right here, this is 0 on the z-axis. You want to leave that as your bottom ground. You can go further than that on your physics simulations, but by default, some of the physics simulations will use that as the floor that whenever an object's falling or whatever, it will stop at that point. All right, so coming back up here, our cup, our dice, everything is just huge at the moment. So let's do some scaling. All right, so box select these 3 items right there. I'm going to grab the scaling tool. And if I click right in the middle of this triangle area here, it'll do a uniform scale down like that. And probably a little bit bigger. Let's move it down onto the table. There we go. Yeah. There's a quicker way to move stuff onto the table. We'll try it with the dice. Dice right now are very huge compared to the cups, so we're going to shrink those down as well. So scaling tool, scale them down. So if I have one of my dice selected here, what I can do to get it dropped down to the table is come over here to Tools and come down to Align. I want to say Align's the one I want, so I'm going to click on that. Sorry if I'm leading you down the wrong path here. And it's asking me what object I want to align with. I want to align this with the tablecloth, so I click on that. And then our align position, X, Y, and Z here, we're going to leave that alone. Pivot point, we're going to change that to minimum. Minimum? Pretty sure it's minimum. Target maximum. And then align orientation. You know, let's turn off the Y and the X. And then let's go ahead and click apply and OK. So if I zoom in here really, really close, there's a little bit of space between them, but honestly, we got to get really close before we notice that they're not actually touching. So at this point in time, that die is aligned with the table. Let's go ahead and click that one and align it as well. So edit, I'm sorry, tools, align, click align again. Click on the tablecloth. It preserved our previous settings except for Z. Okay, click apply and hit OK. And now they're both down on the table here. So I'm going to hold down Control, have them both selected, drag this over here. Just going to get a little bit of spacing there. And now the donut group. It occurs to me that I ungrouped them. So holding down Control, I've got both the torus here and the frosting selected, so I can move them around together. I'm going to click Group and then group them. And let's decide how big this donut should be compared to the cups. Kind of a massive donut at the moment. Let's grab the scaling tool. And let's just go down to right there. And once again, we're going to align it to the table. So Tools, Align. That was Array, not Align. I'm sorry about that. Array will let us make multiple copies of an object and then space them out depending on how we set it on the array. We'll deal with that in a different lesson. So once I click on Align, the window is going to, well, I got to click on the table. Then the window pops up. We want the Z position. And then we're going to click Apply and OK. So now that's flat on the table as well. Now we have one donut. I want more donuts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Shift and I'm just going to drag along the Y-axis right there. We got another donut. I'm going to set it as a copy, hit OK. Holding down Shift again, drag it around like that. Hit OK. And holding Shift one more time, allow it to copy. Drag this over this way, maybe up just a little bit. And just for a little bit of chaos and disorder, one last donut. Drag it this way a bit. And actually, let's go this way. We're going to rotate it like this. And a bit like that. Drag it down so it's touching the table. Got it clipping through the other donut here. I don't want that, so I'm drag it out that way. This donut right here, let's just offset it just a bit so that it's not clipping as well. And then if I rotate around over here, again, we've got some clipping going on. So let's just move it like that. Still a little clipping. Now in the next video, what I'm going to be showing you how to do is how to set up dominoes. Dominoes can be kind of useful in this particular situation because the dominoes, the physics that we're going to be using for the dominoes would be useful because then I could just, apply the physics to each of the donuts and just kind of let them fall into place, kind of like we did with the frosting. I do want to go ahead and rotate a couple of these donuts though, because at the moment, all of them have a divot at the exact same spot, and that's going to look really unnatural. There we go. Oops. So, yes, it's the same donut, but it's at least not obviously the same donut. So we've got a pile of donuts right there. Dice. Now, the only object in this scene that is branded is our soda. So we want to kind of make sure to set them someplace where it's obvious that these are the things we're showing off. So I'm just going to drag that right there, rotate it around a bit. Whenever you're setting up a scene for a staged render, if it's for a product, for the love of all that is good and holy, make sure that the brand logo is very clear. If you do not make the brand logo clear, the company who hired you to do this is going to be more than a bit upset. They really like their logos. So this one is going to be sitting right here. Logo's clear, everything's facing the camera. Well, the viewport. We're going to set up a camera in a few minutes. We got this cup right here and this fluid right here. Then we got our straw that's just floating off in space right here. Let's fix that. Straw is massive. Let's scale that down a bit. Should have scaled it down with the cup. That works. And let's lay it down. So I just have the rotate tool that I'm doing this with. Again, we could have done this with physics and it would have had a little bit more natural of a fall to it. I'm sorry, positioning to it, but this will work. So then up next, once again, we're going to select the line, select the tablecloth, Z positions, the only thing I care about here. Apply and OK. Let's just have it splitting right between the dice. And let's move it right up against this. There we go. For the record, this is not going to be the best stage render in the world, but you'll get the general idea. So our next step is going to be creating our fluid for this cup, and then positioning the cup so that the fluid is pouring out. Okay, so here's where we start having a little bit of fun. I'm going to select the cup, which I've already done, and then I'm going to click Auto Key. Auto Key down here is used for animation. Basically, if I make any changes on the timeline, it's going to set a keyframe, which a keyframe is going to be a reference point that the program uses to figure out how we're going to move stuff from one frame to the next. So if I go to this 0 point, I'm going to click Set Key right there, and you'll see it sets a keyframe right there. Now if I move forward, let's say 15 frames, drag this up, with Auto Key turned on, it creates a new frame. And if I go back and forth between these two spots, you'll see it animates the cup between those locations. So on frame 15, I'm going to move forward to, let's say, 30 frames per second. So this is going to happen in half a second. Rotate this kind of like that. Again, I want to keep the company logo relatively visible. Even if we are pouring out their drink. Now, I'm not sure I want it to be that low because it's starting to cover up the can. I kind of want it to be a little bit back here. There we go. So now our animation is going something like this. Probably shouldn't have had it tip over so quickly. Let's see what happens. All right. So we have this object right here that's going to represent our fluid. So our fluid loader is still right here. We can use the same fluid loader for both things. I'm going to go to the modifier tab and click simulation view, which brings this up. I'm going to create a new liquid object. So now I have liquid 1 and liquid 2. Liquid 1 was the one that we used to make for the donut frosting. Liquid 2 is going to be our poured out drink. So on liquid attributes, again, we want custom. I'm going to select our cylinder there for our emitter type. For collider, we want this liquid to collide with everything. So I'm going to click the cup, the dice, the other die, the straw, the can, each one of the donuts. Let's see, we've got the tablecloth selected, we've got the ring. The ring we shouldn't need selected or anything else underneath it simply because the tablecloth should act as a collider for us. But I went ahead and added those anyways. Don't think there's anything else beyond that one leg that needs clicked on. Yeah, we're good. And then kill planes. I'm not going to worry about a kill plane for this one. So from there, I'm going to go to Solver Parameters and click on Liquid Parameters. For our presets, hate to say it, the one on here that's probably the closest to the way soda moves is going to be beer. So select beer, click load. Again, I'm not going to worry about foam. This is really a beginner thing here. So if we worry about foam, we start adding a whole bunch of extra stuff that I just don't want to mess with. Emitter object, we're going to change that from emitter to container. And from there, let's turn on mesh generation. And hopefully 100 frames is going to be enough to capture what we want. So now if I hit play, it's going to start generating our fluid simulation. And this is considerably more voxels than the previous simulation. And it looks like we got some strays that are going to be popping out of the cup. Hopefully it'll still be fine, because at the end of the day, this is just going to be a still frame, and I only want that one frame of the fluid pouring out. And because I'm moving the cup so quickly, it is sloshing all over the place. Probably should have done the animation across a longer timeline. But we do have a nice solid pour happening right there. What I might be able to do is just go ahead and snip the animation to right there. We'll let this go ahead and go a few more moments, because the cup is just about out of fluid. And it's a little hard to tell from this angle right here, but the fluid is banging right up against the donuts here. Over here, you can see that it's splashing up against it, going up and over. Now these other views, you see it's going around the can, around the die. The die is getting pretty well drenched from all angles, though, so yeah. This cylinder, though, the particles are moving through it because it's not a collider, it's just an emitter. We're actually going to turn that off from visibility because we don't need it visible. Where did I put it? Right, I called it root beer. And you can do stuff while the simulation is going on. Not always the best idea to do. I don't think I'm going to get any better shots than what I have here. So I'm going to go ahead and click stop. And then go to display settings and change it from point to Bifrost cache again. And it is very thin fluid here. Let's go back a bit. So yeah, where I was moving it too quickly, it's going to cause some problems. Namely, everything is just throwing at the camera right there. If I go to a later frame here, stuff is kind of splashing out of the way. At this point, most of the stuff that was going forward is out of the way, and we have this right here. Actually, I'm kind of content with that. Fluid right now, it's not looking like something you would want to drink. Definitely not looking like root beer. So what we're going to do next is go ahead and close out of the solver. Then I'm going to go to my material editor, select one of my blank spots, turn off auto key because you can make animated materials, and I don't want to accidentally do that. From there, I'm going to go with, let's say solid glass. Solid glass may be a bad choice, but we'll find out. On transparency right here, I want to set the color of my solid glass. It's going to be a more solid color here. It's root beer, so it should be some shade of brown, right? Usually a darker brown. Then I'm going to click Material and assign to Selection. And I'm going to render out this single frame. That was actually way closer to the color of soda than I thought it would be. And of course, we do got some problems here. We got all this garbage that's coming off to the side here, and we can fix it. My dice are completely not visible. That's disappointing. We're going to move the dice too. All right. So I'm happy with... Oh. I forgot to hit OK. Now it's gone. And of course, I didn't write down the hex value. Actually, it doesn't even show the hex value over here. Nice. Just darker. It's not brown enough. Let's pretend like that's what it was. Don't think it was. Yeah, so one of my die is right here. We can't really see it. Yeah. I want to move them. So then if I select my dice, grab both of them, whoops. Just going to drag this one off to the side over here as well. Next up, I'm going to select my fluid and open up my simulation view. Again, I said I got a lot of garbage over here that I want to clean up, and I'm going to do that now. So again, we've already got Bifrost cache mesh loaded. I'm going to, once again, do Edit Poly, Polygon Selection, Control A, and to be clear, I could edit the simulation manually here, but again, my computer's not powerful enough to directly do that, so I'm not going to try. Instead, I am going to, once again, come down to where it says Edit Geometry, and then click on this box that says Detach. Call that Soda, detach as clone, click OK. Done with the simulation view for now. Turn off the liquid, find the soda. Here it is. Now, if I select by element, if I click right here, you'll see all of that is selected. Most of the stuff I don't want still in the scene is this stuff over here. So I'm going to highlight it, hit delete. We've got some garbage in front of the cup here. Hold down Alt to click on that and that because that looks, no wait, that's my gizmo. So once I do that, I should be able to hit delete and that garbage is gone. This bit right here is part of the main mesh. That's going to be a little bit of a problem. So what we're going to do, make sure there's no other items over there. I'm going to select that with polygon selection and then hit delete. Problem solved. This is one of those things where it's not visible. What we want to see is visible. The part that we didn't want, it's sure there's a hole in the mesh where I just deleted it, but that hole's not visible, so it's not really something we need to worry about, right? So then at this point, if I click the render button, a lot of that stuff that was splashing over this way is now gone. Should probably clean some of this stuff up, but yeah, let's clean some of that up. Doesn't look quite right. So element selection. Let's grab everything off to the side that way. I really don't like how this bit over here looks. So once again, render. There we go, we got that cleaned up. We still got a few droplets that are breaking away from the main flow, but we should be good there. A little bit of it drifting off that way, some of it splashing up against the can. This is where having foam turned on would look really nice because it would create a bit of a bubbly effect on some of these places where it's hitting stuff. Oh well. But there we go. We have our logos very clearly present. The soda is not covering the logo on the can. I probably should have rotated the cup a little bit more, but you know what? I'm going to be happy with that. Our straw is laying down on the table underneath our cup that is being poured out. That is ruining our poor and defenseless donuts. And then we got our dice that we made just sitting right there. All right. I'm pretty happy with this. So there we have it. We have the frosting on the donut. We have the root beer being poured out of the cup. And we've set up our staged render. Again, this isn't the best example of a staged render, but it does show off all the props and make the product very recognizable. And that's going to be it for this video.